There was a time when certain parts of the media chose to censor itself and become the moral compass for society. Now, to be fair, a lot of that media was brand new at the time, but that's not the case with books. Books had been around for generations, and books had always managed to find a truth, even if that meant stepping over the line. But with that comes the moral reprehensible aspects. But now that all media can point to examples of this, is there even a line to be drawn? Have we moved it so far back, become so desensitized, that shock and awe doesn't even exist anymore? We will discuss. NCL Canon will be along with indie books you might enjoy if you're a fan of Darkly Dreaming Dexter by Jeff Lindsay. Then after the Go Indie Now Minute, our panelists will be reading from their own books and drawing their own lines when it comes to sex and violence, sex and violence, sex and violence, sex and violence, right here, right now, on This Week in Indies with your host, Joe Compton. Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to This Week in Indies, and any chance I get to sing a little Exploited in the morning is always a good morning. But I hope you all are having fun, and sorry about the late start. That's on me. I realized something in the back annals of what was annals? Back annals of what was it's, even with an extra hour, I can't talk. But
getting
back
on par
in
with
the background, we had some stuff going on. Anyway, hi Anita, welcome. And I just want to remind everybody to send a star to our hosts and producers and show us how much you appreciate what we do and how we do it. Every time you contribute, you'll receive an entry to get into our prize package, which is a $25 Amazon gift card or Visa card. I know some people don't want to support the evil empire, so I can make it a Visa card if you don't want the Amazon card. And then a $25 Bandcamp gift card or drive-through gift card if you are a gamer or a music lover. One of those, and then of course some swag from Go Indie Now. Oh boy, not really Elizabeth, but I appreciate that. Everything is Zenyo, yes. All right, and with that being said, look at the wonderful dais I have here with me. I hope you all are well rested from the extra hour, or maybe some of you didn't even get the extra hour. I don't know. I was. Sarah, do you get the extra hour?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Nevada does. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, you were the only one I was thinking was on the fence about whether you got the extra hour or not. But
yeah, you're thinking of Arizona. They don't.
Yeah, but Arizona doesn't get switches.
Yeah.
They're stuck in the middle.
Suckers. All right. That being said, let's go around the room and say hello to everybody. We'll start with the man who usually starts us off, Mr. S.M. Hillman.
Hey. Not muted again. Hey everyone, SM Hillman, professionally, I'm Sean. Everybody, I'm a host here for This Week in Indies and also for Zero Means You're Dead and Hit the Dice. So yeah, glad to be here.
Awesome, nice to have you, Mr. Brian Tan.
What's going on, everybody? It's Brian Tan. Joe's other half when it comes to saving you a seat or work in the indies. Good morning. Happy extra hour of the year. And yeah, buddy.
All right. Yeah, that note, follow that, Sarah.
I feel like this is going to be a little bit of a slap happy panel this morning because of the extra sleep. Hi, I'm Sarah, professionally SG Tosh. You've seen me here on This Week in Indies and Hit Dice as well earlier this week, in fact.
Awesome. Nice to have you. Mr. DZ Hollow.
DZ Hollow, extreme horror, splatterpunk, horror author. Happy to be here. I don't think it's been a minute since I've been on a show of yours, Joe, so I'm excited.
Nice to have you. And I think this is the perfect topic for you, my friend.
Yes, definitely.
You can thank Sean. This is all Sean's idea, by the way. He loves the onesie as he breaks the fourth wall. Yeah. So, in that spirit, Sean, was there something you wanted to have known right away, or you want me to just run with it? And
No, you go ahead and run with it. That's how we roll here. That's how we roll at Go Indie.
All right, so let's start with the. I'm gonna throw a fireball at you to start with. You know, in the intro, I was mentioning desensitization, right? And we're in a period of time when things are shit and things are crazy, and the lines are blurred more than probably they've ever been. And so I'm wondering right away, is this something you're excited about as a creator, or is it something you're concerned about? Do you feel like the pendulum will swing the other way at some point, or do you feel like uh, right now is the most free you could be? I'm curious how you all feel about where we are as a society in terms of how acceptable what we write and how we write it is.
Well, I guess I'll just jump in.
Yeah.
There's as far as where we are as a society, I think it's very complicated. We are more free. I think we find it's easier to find an audience, right, for extreme sexual or violent content, stuff that's either that you turn up to 11, if we're praising that band. I can't remember names. Spinal Tap. Thank you. But I also think too, we are also in a time where we can be smarter. Like if your content is non-consensual in ways that violence against women, for instance, violence against people of color and other cultures, where if you're still doing that same old shit, I don't think that's acceptable in terms of content that that's not new and exciting, and it's in a lot of ways it's not good content. But it does allow us to now, we are free to explore violence and sexualities that we weren't necessarily able to do before. So.
Yeah, I think if I can jump in, I think right now, especially if you're paying attention to current events, which everyone should be paying attention to current events to some degree that is healthy for you, you are being confronted with uncomfortable things pretty much all the time. And that is on the one hand extremely unpleasant, but it also kind of encourages you, let's say, to figure out what you are willing to tolerate and what you aren't. Whether you like it or not, you're able to you are learning more about your boundaries when you're confronted with that stuff. I think the difference now, especially this past kind of year and a little bit before, people would self-select into that sort of confrontation with what they would read, and they would test okay, or what they would consume, and they would decide, okay, this is too much for me, this, or this is okay. And right now, I think we're in a situation where people are being confronted with uncomfortable things kind of against what they would choose. But I think as a creator, that puts us in a unique position because sometimes when you have people who accidentally consume your media because they thought it was something that it isn't, you can get that sort of backlash. And as a creator, it's mostly up to you to either take that feedback and be oh, okay, well, maybe this is too far, or consider the source and be oh, this was not a matter of bad content. It was a matter of bad targeting or bad marketing. And this person never should have really had this to begin with. So it's an interesting situation.
I think that's a great point about the misrepresentations.
I think that part of it also is that depending on what your content is, sort of to piggyback off the misunderstanding, the misrepresentation, though, is also as creators, we can't control who consumes our content, nor can we control what they do with that consumption of content. right? It's kind of like the blaming of Marilyn Manson for the activities of Columbine. You can't blame Marilyn Manson for that. You can't blame the Matrix for that. You know, you can't blame anything. Those were choices that were made. I think that creators and their art are usually used as scapegoats for the dark aspects of human behavior. You know, there's individuals that have so many different mental health needs where we're still negatively stigmatizing mental health needs. And there are people that consume different forms of content as a way to sort of deal with what they're going through. And then they're motivated in some way to try to take some power back. And unfortunately, their intrusive thoughts went out in the physical world. I don't feel that that's something that you can put on the content creator, because unless somebody puts something out there where it like just flat out blatantly says, do this terrible thing and I'll be proud of you. You know what I mean? I don't know much of anything where, you know, an art is put out where it kind of glorifies or encourages to do, because I mean, with some of the stuff that you look at, there's always consequences, but people miss that. But it's so much easier to just blame the content than it is to blame the behavior or blame the overriding issue behind said behavior. I mean, you look at it now we're starting to where we're coming back to blaming video games for violence in society. Meanwhile, whether you want to admit it or not, that human beings have an innate level of violence to them.
DZ, you want to jump in?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, obviously writing extreme horror and, you know, it's a tough area, especially, you know, with my novel, I didn't intend, I was actually trying to write like my least horror book, and with Car Decay, and I ended up writing an extreme horror with lots of violence and a lot of rape and a lot of terrible things in it. And the thing I kept doing was, you know, and I'm also mentioned, my wife is the one who edits my books, Juliet Rose, who also has a show on Go Indie now, you know, and I made sure, and I kept telling her, is there enough commentary, you know, saying these things are wrong, getting into the head of somebody who's going through something horrible. And my reasoning for writing that stuff came from, you know, being sheltered at a young age and going to college, and I knew a girl who I saw her crying and everybody comforting her, and she had been raped, you know, like 2 days before that. She went to a party at another college.
Hey, DZ, you're breaking up. You're actually frozen.
Oh, crap. Yeah, I'm getting hit with a storm here, so it may get bad.
You were talking about a young lady.
Bad weather from breaking up.
Yeah. Oh, I think you're totally frozen now. There you go. You're back. Oh, you dropped out. Okay. Oh, all right. Yeah, I mean, I will. We'll bring him back. Make sure he can finish his point, because that was interesting. So just to keep the conversation going a little bit while we wait for him to come back, you know, he was talking about extreme lines. There he's back. Okay, cool. Well, I don't see him, but there you go. There he is.
He might try audio only if it's really bad.
DZ, you there?
I'm here. Yeah, it's really, I'm watching it. The trees bending outside. We're supposed to get hit with bad weather, and it's probably going to knock me out. But no, I was, it opened up this idea of like, wow, this is a reality for women. And then I met my, you know, friends who had horrible things happen to them, and seeing that, this is something that a lot of people went through. I got in trouble when I was a young age. I went to treatment for, using drugs when I was 18 years old, and the court ordered me, and learned that, a lot of people had been through some very violent stuff. And having that voice to do that was kind of my point in writing what I did, was, tapping into these things that people go through horrible things, and sometimes they don't have the voice to let people know, this is what I've been through and it's wrong.
Yeah, that's a great point. I am curious about the lines. Is there lines we're drawing for ourselves, or do we have? I mean, DZ, if you want to start talking about this, because I mean, you go into some really, really heinous stuff, and so I'm curious if there's a line for you anymore. Or are you kind of? Is there something you're looking at and going, this might be a bridge too far, or is it just the opposite? You haven't gone far enough. How do you feel about the lines that we draw?
It's tough, and as somebody who doesn't just write that, and writes everything, I follow the story, and I have lines where I won't, go too far. I had gone through and re-edited this book actually from the beta version, and toned a couple scenes down that I just personally, for me, I didn't want to give people the wrong idea, even though they were coming from things that surfaced from my childhood that I had gone through, that I had blocked until I started writing this book. So it's tough because you don't get anybody the wrong idea. Is you write about murder, you're not a murderer. That doesn't make us a murderer. You write about somebody being raped, does that make you a rapist? If that you write about, somebody abusing a child, does that make you, an abuser? I always say my victims and the abusers are both me. There's some part of myself that's dealing with what I've gone through. So I have lines that I've drawn for myself, like especially when it comes to children and things like that. Now, granted, I have put it in books, but I've done it in a way that, I won't put it as on the page as a lot of things in extreme and bladder. Desensitization.
Frozen again. All right.
I mean, I think he was making some really good points. I think
Yeah,
I think that in our writing, I think a big part of it is we have to go to these dark places, not just for entertainment, but I mean, look, if we told stories that were just bland and blah, who's going to read it? If a filmmaker just tells a bland and blah story, who's going to watch it? A lot of the times, we have to go to these dark, real places to tell a compelling story. That's just it. I mean, it doesn't make us terrible people. I mean, I'm in Ed and Livy, the book that's of mine that's up there right now. It involves, a lot of terrible stuff. That doesn't mean that I've done any of it, but I've either experienced it or know someone who has experienced it, and it was used. Those subjects were used as a way of not just telling a story, but of healing as well. I mean, it's sad. It's said that like sex sells, darkness sells, but I don't think enough is put into the fact that when we're able to put voice to these traumas, it heals, and maybe it helps someone else to heal. Sometimes making things fantastical the way it's done in books, whether it's in a really, really gruesome, grotesque way or whatever, maybe someone that's going through it can find a little bit of peace. I mean, how many people watch horror movies and find a level of peace from it, even just for a few minutes, because of how screwed up the world is? I mean, come on. What's more scary right now? The world we're living in, or a world that's written in a book or we see in a film?
Before anybody else jumps in, what struck me, Brian, in editing our current episode of Saving a Seat was you had reacted to the movie. Spoiler alert: we have a movie that Brian and I didn't really care for in our next episode. But the way you reacted to the movie, something resonated with you with the message they were telling, and that struck me as interesting because it did not resonate with me. And so yeah, and I'm thinking about like that as what you're talking about in terms of and because they go into a dark place with this movie, but it's not entertaining at all.
Unfortunately, it's not. But so much could be done with it. I mean, spoiler alert for it. For those of us who deal with PTSD or a level of darkness that's just below the surface, it's how many of us feel like it's a kind of a monster that lurks within.
Well, and the other example I was going to give is people talking about that was nice. That was a nice little pun there. But people will understand when they see the episode. I was also going to give an example as what people are talking about as like bad. People are like either people are shunning the Thunderbolts as a bad movie, or they're resonating with the idea of mental health with the movie, right? And that's so it's weird how things strike you in terms of that.
I'll fight someone over Thunderbolts too. I'll fight someone over it.
That's another conversation for another day.
I know.
But I'm sorry, Sarah and Sean, I'd love for you all to jump in on this.
I actually kind of forgot the question.
Lines go. Where do you have a line? Is there a line? What do you think of the line? Has it moved?
Yeah, no. So just sort of as a blanket rule, I don't put restrictions on myself when I'm writing. Now, that being said, I think it sounds like, having not read all of your books yet, I'm not sure, but it sounds like I'm on the lighter end of this stuff, probably. Like the scene I have today, is my most kind of horror scene I've written, and it's still very like embellished and like it's meant to be sort of a nod to like Evil Dead 2 and like sort of comedy horror, dark stuff. So I don't think I sort of tread in the same areas as you guys do. But at the same time, like if I chose to, I wouldn't put any limits on that in terms of like where I'm comfortable going. I think, I don't think I'd be comfortable writing something with children, just my own personal thing. And then sort of from a larger perspective, like in general, I wouldn't ever put restrictions on what someone else could write. It's more if I'm going to read it. I believe in sort of the feedback from the market, and like, if people don't like it, then, people won't read it. And that's kind of how that should work.
Fair enough. Sean, you want to jump in?
Yeah. So I will think about the first thing I think about really is genre, right? The hard piece of science fiction I'm working on, which is way more political and mystery. So a erotic scene or a sexual assault of some kind wouldn't be appropriate for that story. It would be superfluous, right? It wouldn't add anything at all. But extreme violence or some sort of more explicit sexuality in like Sirocco, like today, in that universe, that would be appropriate, right? So I think genre has something to do with it as well whenever I'm thinking. But I mostly just think about a particular scene if it's not really a line. It's just much more, does this forward the story? And if it does, great. If it does not, then I don't. One thing I wanted to pick up on what Brian said is that a lot of reason people get into kink activities is to do the same thing, right? So they may go through at various bits of sadomasochism or consensual non-consent, things like that, to kind of work through issues, to heal from past trauma, to deal with their own mental health as well. So, and I think that those people in that lifestyle like to read. Um, if I'm being judged, they like to read that kind of thing as well. That also helps them. So I think I absolutely agree with Brian. There's a certain degree of healing that can work. When you work with stories like that.
And A.F. Stewart brings up a good point in the chat. She wrote, "Writing darkness not only heals readers, but writers too. I've lost track of how many horror authors mentioned how cathartic writing horror is." I find that too, as somebody who's currently writing a horror novel. My thing is, and this might be weird, and you all can chastise me for this, but my thing is I feel like I'm not horror enough. I'm not going dark enough into places. Like my horror is kind of boring in a lot of respects. When I'm rereading it back, and it's kind of, and then somebody else reads it and goes, "This is really sick and twisted." I go, "Wait, okay, how fucking sick and twisted am I?" And if I don't think it's good twisted enough when I'm writing it, and then somebody goes, "Yeah, this is really scary," I'm like, "Okay."
Well, see, I don't know how to be scary. Like my book, The Concussion, to me, that's going to be my first actual horror. But it's more scary for me because it's my worst fear. But Ed and Livy, I actually wrote a section of that book, and then I'm like, whoa, I think this was a step too far. And then I'm asking Ed Souter, and he's like, well, no, it's your book. Do what you want. I said, yeah, but I don't want to be canceled before I even do anything. So I actually edited it out.
Yeah.
But even to this day, I'm like, wow, where was my head at? Like, I think if someone actually read that part, they're like, ew.
Thank you, Anita. I appreciate that. DZ, I'm curious about your headspace when you're doing these dark things. Is it hard for you is there a residual effect for you, or is it more of a therapeutic aspect?
Well, for sure. I mean, there's nights where I might not sleep well because that day was the day of writing the darker stuff, and then I need to balance it out with more fun writing. So I try to balance it out. I don't want to be just an extreme or splatter. Like, I follow the story, like I said. But yeah, I mean, I like the creativity of stuff. Like in Cartacay, I got into something that I don't feel like a lot of people do, and basically there's one of the characters is now 40 years old, and he's kidnapped his old math teacher from high school, who basically groomed him when he was a boy, and he started and had an affair. So it was like flipping that table a little bit of something I hadn't seen of. Now this is a boy who's grown into a man and is taking his abuse out on the person who brutalized him as a child. So getting into that headspace was weird. It's not one I relate to, but I thought when I started the book, as I got to the end of the book, I started realizing I had, something surfaced during that from my childhood. So, I mean, it's one of those things of there's the creative edge of killing and brutality of violence that you try to come up with. But I feel like when you bring sex into it, that's when it gets a lot weirder and darker. Like what's okay. And there's people out there that like some violence in their sex. You know what I mean? That there's people that get off on that. So, and consensually. So it's one of those things where, yeah, I just follow the story and I try to be creative and not copy things that I've seen or done.
Yeah, Sean mentions, like body horror, there is body horror, and then there's Cronenberg.
Oh yeah.
My least favorite horror.
And then there's the guy who did the Human Centipede movies. That guy needs that guy needs to go away.
There's body horror. Then for those that have played Vampire the Masquerade, there are people that love playing the Zemiche or Zemisi. That's body horror, my friend.
I don't know that. What is that?
Basically, they're vampires who their powers are flesh and bone crafting.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Oh. Sean, you want to speak to that one?
Flesh and bone crafting.
Well, to some degree, I mean, it's a great example of. So there's a thing in gaming. Those who don't know, like there's lines and veils, and there's the X card. And I don't like the X card for a lot of reasons, but a lot of people use it. And in the last decade or so, they've taken the green, yellow, red stoplight metaphor from kink and applied that to game as well. Green being, yeah, do whatever you want. Yellow being, can we slow this down? And red being, no.
Is there is there a card with like a safe word on it or something in gaming?
yeah. People like X is that safe word, right? For instance, but no, I think it's really interesting too because like with lines and veils and things like that, it's the same kind of like creative content has across the board. The spectrum has a lot in common with each other, and I think for all the good and bad, the critique that you could lay at the feet of Vampire the Masquerade, it did in many ways give nerds permission to have sex in their games, right? And violent sex in their games. I mean, the act. I mean, we're aware the act of, or at least we've been conditioned to, the act of draining blood from someone is both horrific but also kind of hot, right? And so that gave a whole generation of people who either weren't having sex or were thinking about sex in their games. Suddenly they're like, oh, we can do stuff like this. And the same with the Shimishi and the body horror and things like that. It's like it's transgressive, right?
I will say it is hot, except for I could go without ever reading again the scene in Dune where they drain Lord Harkonen's blood. That to me, I'm good with that.
Alert!
I'm good with never reading that or seeing that on screen ever again. But
I actually, in my vampire novels, I tried to steer a little bit away from the erotic feeding, mainly just because everyone is kind of like that. That's becomes, people are so comfortable with it now that it's not shocking anymore. It's more just, I think that in this time, from when you, me, and some of us were in our teens, this stuff was still kind of taboo-ish because we didn't have social media and the internet to know that there were other people that were into this, that it would be okay. We were, I hate to use the term closeted, so let's just say we were hiding it. We were sheltered. We sheltered ourselves from it. Where now,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
There's whole communities now where now it's safe to be into what you're into. And I don't think that there's a way to sort of put that back in the box. You just eliminate social media altogether.
There's also a different sentimentality to when we were growing up. A lot of our stuff was very campy, and I want to get into that aspect of it too. But
it was made a joke to make it safe.
Right. I mean, when we watch Jason knock somebody's head off, we go, "Oh, that's funny, cool." We kind of chuckle, because it's the way they do it is very silly, and the visual effect is very, very campy in the way it does. But I want to bring this into the conversation real quick before we get into that aspect, and that's Kwai Murray says writing kink isn't one-to-one what the writer is into. There are some kinks that I write and read that I would never do in real life. And I was gonna have you piggyback on that, Sean, a little bit. Do you want to kind of?
Oh yeah, sure. I mean,
because I think there is the other aspect of this. We've been talking a lot about the violent aspect, but the sex aspect is just as the lines are just as polarizing. So
absolutely, there are plenty of things that I would write about or have written about that I have zero interest in. And things I've recently been researching because, for those who don't know, I recently lost part of my leg. An amputee fetish is a big thing, and you're lying there in a hospital and with nothing to do, and you think, well, what would, what is this something, I probably should, being into kink as it is, I should probably look into this. And it was an interesting sort of exploration of all the parameters that go along with that. But no, I 100% agree with Kwan Mermaid, is that, like was brought up before, right? You might write a book about murder, and you might write a very good book about murder, but it doesn't make you a murderer. It doesn't not also, but just saying that. But yeah, the ability to write, it gets back to what we were talking about last week to some degree. The ability to write outside your box is interesting, and it's interesting to explore some of that stuff, even if you're not going to do it in real life.
Yeah, I told this story before here, but when I wrote my first book, which is right next to me there, my ex-father-in-law read it, and we were sitting at his dining room table, and it was silent as all get out. Like, this man talks a lot. We can talk. And, the two of us can, there's not a word, missed edgewise between the two of us. And it was very quiet. And I go, is it weird in here? Is it very quiet? And he goes, yeah, I read your book. And I don't know if I know you anymore. He's like, I'm a little weary of talking to you about stuff.
I've had that. I think it was Sharon looked at me really funny when she read Unbreakable Mind.
Oh yeah,
she read the one the for those who haven't read Unbreakable Mind, you want to talk about a form of like body horror and crossing a line. Oh, I crossed the line. And she looked.
The series is named the Permutation
Archive. Yeah. And she just goes, "Why?" And I said, "For that reaction right there."
Yeah, I felt like I had accomplished a lot with that, right? So.
Oh, I absolutely did. Well, you know what? I actually took that from the one scene in the Alien versus Predator franchise. Mm-hmm. That was compelling. The only scene of that whole thing, and if you've seen the two movies, you'll know which one I'm talking about if I give you context, but I'm not gonna, because I want you to go read the book.
See, this is part of, I think, the appeal is like, I know that if I read that book, I'm going to not enjoy it probably, but it's like eating something really spicy. It's like, this is really going to hurt me. I kind of want to do it anyway. It's just, it's because it's there.
Well, plus we want our villains to cross every single line possible because we want them to get their comeuppance.
Yeah.
Like, you look at Vader, look at Darth Vader for a second. And before the prequels became a thing, and we were just hearing about all the things that Anakin Skywalker did to fall to the dark side, and it made his defeat at the hands of his son feel a little bit sweeter, right? I think the prequels,
especially the third movie,
the third movie, while it does make it okay, now we're seeing it, I kind of think it takes away from it a little bit because it's implied we don't see it, but he becomes sympathetic because we come to care about the character Anakin. Mm-hmm. But when we see the actual vehicles like Palpatine, there is nothing you can show us on Palpatine that makes him sympathetic. He gets what he deserves, and we love it. But even Darth Bane, when you read Darth Bane's novels, there's an understanding as to why he was the way he was. He's sympathetic in some ways. And yes, Anita's absolutely right. The prequels, in a lot of ways, neutered Vader. They absolutely did. Rogue One sort of gave him a little bit more, but they were more like pre-falling.
I know we have to do the indie connection, but I want to touch on what Sarah said, because it's interesting to me about I find like I read books about like violent things and I cringe, right? I don't enjoy that. But the sexual ones, the ones that go a little too far in the sex realm, I get more curious about. You know what I mean? There's a difference between the two aspects, and and I don't know if that's just my fucked up brain or whatever, but does that make sense to everybody? I mean, there's kind of this interesting idea, right? I mean, yeah, I eat spicy food and I come to enjoy it, right? But and because I challenged myself to do that, and it was not bad, right? And some of it just tastes like gasoline, but but you know what I mean. It's like I'll read a book about murder, and I'll never think about they got away with murder. That's how you get away with murder, right? I never think about that. It doesn't.
Well,
doesn't
I think
cross
I
my
think the
mind.
sexual aspect of it is. I think it's because sometimes we might even just be afraid that is there. Because when you look at the sexual aspect of it, I mean that's a level of, I think, we feel at our most vulnerable. And I think there's an inherent fear there. Oh my God, am I really into that? Because then is it gonna, if I experience it, am I safe? And if I enjoy it, is there something wrong with me? And then if you do enjoy it and you're comfortable with it, is it gonna be the same the next time? You know what I mean? Because when we search for, I think as human beings, we search for a level of pleasure that'll take us out of the everyday. So there's that worry of, is there something wrong with me for liking this? Am I safe if I experience it? Will I continue to enjoy it the same? Or do I have to go even further? Now you come into the worry of addiction.
Anybody else want to jump in on that before we go to any connection?
I would say on the other side of that, it is also like books. You talked about safety. Books, if you are curious about something, books are inherently a safe space to explore that stuff too. I've heard a lot of stories from women on social media and other places talking about, like, I didn't know I was into this. I didn't know how to, or I knew kind of I was into this, but I didn't know how to ask my partner for it. And then it was a thing that they could be like, this is what I want. And it was a way to like illustrate that without feeling like weird for asking for it, I guess. Cause it's like, look, someone wrote it down, so it's fine. So it's also like, it can be an empowering thing as well.
Yeah. Cause I think a lot of that also goes from, plus you might not want to ask a partner, because if the partner doesn't like it, now you worried about being judged. If your partner does like it, now your partner is going to make it a bigger deal than maybe you want it to be. It's just easier to enjoy it in the safe space between covers.
Right. Yep.
Sean, DZ, you guys want to jump in before I go to any connection? Can't hear you.
That stupid storm is killing some compelling content.
I know.
Damn you, Mother Nature!
Yeah, can't hear.
Homeboy about to spit. Mother Nature can't let that happen.
How about now?
There you go.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, I'd be echoing everything else in a sense. I mean, reading, I didn't write extreme in splatter until I read it, right? Reading is what made me get more into expanding what I wrote. So, and my thing is, if somebody else has written something more ridiculous than me, then I just know that I could say, well, that's out there. So I have my barometers of other authors, and I just stay within that barometer, and then but no, I'm actually trying to go back now a little bit and try to write stuff that's a little bit less that way, because this is a new pen name for me for more extreme horror. But I realized that I just, it's picked up a lot more, and I didn't want it to just be that. So while it's still fresh, next year my goal is to actually have something out that's a little more mainstream, that doesn't show all the sex and violence. But I find it easier to write, and that's where a lot of it comes from. To me, it's easier to write more gory stuff than it is to really write something that's really like my wife and I are working on a kids series of horror books, Goosebumps, and I am struggling to write that. 1,000 words every few weeks is hard, where I can write 5,000 in a day if I need to, if it's going to be violent, and, push the boundaries. So to me, it's a lot more work to be R.L. Stine than it is to be Stephen King. But it's just getting better, and trying to figure out new things. But yeah.
Yeah, it took Stephen King almost 20 years to kind of get on the moral playing field a little bit too. Sean?
Sure. I mean, it gets brought up all the time as for its ending, for being, very genre bending and controversial. So.
I mean, yeah, we went from a cosmic turtle to teenage orgy in the sewers. Raphael will not be pleased.
Spoiler alert, everybody.
It's only been out for like 40 years if you haven't,
The other thing I had to add is that the thing about sexual hijinks is it's very transgressive, right? Because as a society, even still, most societies point you towards relationships that benefit the society long term, don't necessarily benefit you either in the short term or long term. And sex is very transgressive. Like just a book about having an affair is very transgressive, right? But going to someone and getting spanked, going to someone and getting tied up, watching extreme snuff films while having sex, it's very transgressive, and people like transgressive.
I think also with that example, for me, and this is just me, and again, my fucked up brain, I'm telling you all, you don't want to be in here. Trust me. But for me, it's the way that it's written too that separates sex from violence too, right? When you go extremely into the violent and it's written extremely violent, like DZ does, and I've read some of what DZ's written already, because I have a couple books of his that I'm going to read and review at some point. But I've written like the first, I've read the first couple pages, and some of that. There is a difference if you write it well, then like for example, like the affair thing. If you're writing a good sex scene within an affair, I'm more likely to read it about the sex part and be be interested, curious about the sex aspect of it, right? Instead of the affair itself. But if you're talking about murdering somebody and you're brutally murdering somebody, I'm more into, I'm not into, but I'm reading the murder, right? And like being mortified by the murder. Does that make sense to everybody? Is that?
Yeah, I mean, I would kind of couple that to that Viggo Mortensen film History of Violence, where especially the scene with him and his wife, where
in the cheerleader outfit, that scene.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's very violent.
Yeah.
But the there's more behind it than just the violence. It's a connection. It's a passion where you can tell that neither one of them in their conscious minds, they both know that this isn't them.
Right.
But there's almost like a primal connection where it's more than just it's not gratuitous like you would see in some of those 80s camp BS movies that we grew up watching.
Right.
It's actually continuing the story.
Right.
And that's a scene right there when you would hear actors say they only would do like nudity or sex scenes in their art if it was important to the story. That's what they mean. Yeah. It's not just flashing body parts for the sake of flashing body parts.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anything else anybody want to add? All right, we're gonna go.
If it happens to be super hot, that's just a bonus, I guess.
All right. So we could not have more apropos and be more in line and step with one another. As always, see you, Cannon. shows us that she's paying attention to what we're talking about, and you'll see what I mean, because here is indie books you might enjoy if you're a fan of Darkly Dreaming Dexter.
Hey guys, CEO Kamen here from Fiction Atlas Press, bringing you another Indie Connection. And today I'd like to tell you about some indie books that you might enjoy if you're a fan of our resident serial killer, Dexter. So today's pick is Darkly Dreaming Dexter by Jeff Lindsay. So here's some indie titles that are very similar. The first book I have for you is called The Bloody Rose by Christopher Stanfield. What happens when your best friend discovers your dark secret? Life was already complicated enough for Apple Rose. After all, bubbly cheerleader by day and ruthless serial killer by night isn't an easy feat to pull off, even if her victims might deserve their twisted fate. But when her best friend Cindy Nix learns the truth, things become about as thorny as can be. In some ways, Apple has always wanted to be seen and to have someone know the truest nature of her heart. But even this turn catches her by surprise. Will her bond with Cindy shatter now that the ugly truth is known? Or will Apple be surprised again? It was certainly tricky enough before, but now it's about to get a whole lot worse, especially with a complication neither see coming. Whatever happens next, one fact is crystal clear. The truth can be a dangerous thing. The second book I have for you is called My Darlings by Marie Still. No one was supposed to know. I've always been so careful. My darlings, how do we get here? Evil lurks behind the perfectly manicured lawns, ornate iron gates, and long winding driveways of affluent D.C., but not for long. Stay-at-home mom Eloise Williams is PTO president and a respected local philanthropist who sits on the board of many distinguished charities. In addition to being a doting wife and mother, she is also a serial killer. But Eloise isn't the only lady in society playing a part. As the hidden lives of Eloise's inner circle are exposed, the body count rises. When Stalker becomes prey, Eloise desperately clings to control. Money and power can only buy influence and safety for so long. Eventually, the curtains lift, exposing the chilling reality hiding in plain sight. The third book I have for you is called Blood on the Badge by Mary Stone. Every villain has a story. Every hero, a dark past. Justice Hall has secrets. His name is just the beginning. Born as Timothy Stewart, this 26-year-old rookie detective's life took an unexpected turn when Justin Black, the serial killer known as the Disciple, brutally murdered his family and groomed him as a child. Out of the wreckage, little Tim reinvented himself, adopting a new identity that eerily echoes his malefactor's name. A mere coincidence or an indelible imprint of the past? The truth remains buried within Justice, even from himself. Justice is certain of one thing, though. His most recent case needs to go cold, and quickly. The son of East Texas's most beloved senator has disappeared, and the father is pressuring the Alameda County Sheriff's Office to devote its full resources to the search. Justice disagrees. Not only are there more pressing cases to work, like a brutal killer mutilating young women, but he also harbors a secret about the missing man. He's buried beneath Justice's own apple tree. And the last book I have for you is called Whispers in the Reeds by Jenna O'Bragan. In the shadowy depths of the Florida Everglades, something is watching. Tourists go missing without a trace, swallowed by the swamp, but not by nature. Zechariah Demiri, a meticulous and eerily polite park ranger, hides a monstrous truth. He is a serial killer bound by a strict ritual. He only kills on Fridays. Trapped by the rigidity of his own compulsions, Zachariah clings to routine to keep his violent urges in check. But when the pressure builds and his carefully maintained mask begins to slip, even he starts to question whether he can hold himself back much longer. Sophie Ramirez, a sharp-witted journalist with ADHD and a talent for spotting patterns others ignore, suspects something sinister behind the disappearances. Dismissed by her editor as too green and too obsessed, Sophie pushes forward, her hyperfixation driving her into dangerous territory. Determined to uncover the truth, she heads into the Everglades with her best friend Mia, searching for answers that no one else wants to find. There she meets Lucian Rhodes, an enigmatic environmental consultant with secrets of his own. Unbeknownst to Sophie, Lucian is an operative of the Red Thread Society,
a clandestine organization that manipulates crime and chaos to control public perception. His mission? Contain Sophie, redirect her investigation, and if necessary, eliminate her. But as he grows closer to her, Lucian finds his loyalties tested in ways he never anticipated. As Sophie digs deeper, the society takes notice. A high-stakes meeting convenes, and its ruthless leader, Harry Graves, issues a chilling ultimatum. End the threat or face the consequences. Meanwhile, Zachariah experiments with breaking his ritual through a tentative romance with a coworker, but the results are catastrophic, revealing just how tightly his inner monster is coiled. With the Everglades closing in, secrets unraveling, and danger mounting on all sides, the fates of Sophie, Lucian, and Zachariah collide. In a swamp thick with lies, love, and blood, the truth won't stay buried for long. I think that's all for me this week. I'll see you next week on the Indie Connection. Bye.
As always, we're very grateful to CL Cannon for those wonderful, wonderful books, and that's amazing. There's a lot of indie books that mirror Dexter, and I'm always wondering why the companion's name is Harry. I don't know what that deal is, but that's cool. Dexter is a great example of what the last thing I want to talk about with everybody, and that's There's an element of campiness and humor that accompanies sex and violence often in a lot of, even now. I mean, maybe even more so now. I mean, well, actually, probably the 80s was the champion of the campiness. But there's a diffusion that goes along with that. And I'm curious for you all as writers, and, we're all of a similar generation. Sarah's probably a little bit younger than all of us, but I'm making you a compliment, by the way, Sarah. But
I'm not gonna say anything.
but I am curious. Is it that the culture we were brought into that helps us? Bring that into our that element into our writing? Is it we're just tired of? Is that the line for us now? Is we just get tired of doing so many dark things that we need some campiness in our life? Where does the campiness come in for you in terms of and what does it and what cause and effect does it have for you in terms of what you do and how you do it?
I have a campy series that I do of the most stupid and most ridiculous thing I could imagine. And that's where campy comes for me, is when I want to be stupid and ridiculous. And I smoke weed, and I saw that 420 and Easter were on the same day back in November this past spring. So I wrote a story about a bong. Guy wouldn't clean his bong, and it spilled, and the Easter bunny came out, and he was a glob of resin that kills people. And it gets really campy, and it gets really stupid, and the tooth fairy ends up being his wife, and she's like selling ketamine and LSD and nitrous oxide on tour for his cover band. And it's just so campy and stupid, and I get horrible reviews. I mean, people have said it's the stupidest thing they've ever read. It's completely not the example of my writing, but then people love it. There's people who just absolutely love it. I sold a mask I made for it when one of my, readers' friends was it for Halloween this year. So it's one of those things where it's just campy for me is when I want to be fun, and not take myself too seriously, which you're right. In the 80s, I think there was a lot of that.
I have a work in progress that I still don't have a title for, but I've told Joe about it. It's essentially my romance comedy, where the lead character is just an everyday Joe that finds out that his wife is one of the top mercs in the world, and he gets it in his mind that he's going to save her, and he's like, it's like my throwback to Bud Abbott and Lou Costello's sort of camp, ridiculous Jar Jar Binks level physical comedy, where it's like he's accidentally doing things. He's a Terrence Trent D'Arby song. He's trying to do the right things, but he does it in the absolute wrong way. Now, of course, I need to go back to a certain point of it, because it went from this sort of romantic comedy, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Central Intelligence into like Universal Soldier. How that happened, I don't know, but that's
or my ex super girlfriend.
Or you
Yeah.
know what? Actually, it turned into I legit like almost turned him into John Baker by accident. So it's like, yeah, we need to take this back. I want this to be fun and silly, and you know what I mean, where guys are looking at this dude like you're the luckiest dude in the world, and women are like, typical man, always getting in the way.
I think, Sean, I'd have to go back in our archives and look it up, but I think this is the first time in This Week in Indies history that the prequels have been brought up twice in one episode.
I think that is correct. Yes.
Sarah, Sean, you guys want to jump in on this?
I was just thinking about how it's been so long since I've heard of My Super Ex-Girlfriend, and what a that was. Like, I wanted it to be good, and it just to me.
I mean, it has Uma Thurman in it. You would think, right?
Wilson in it too, and he's so not funny.
He's really not.
No, he's super boring. He adds nothing to the movie, but that's so far away from this topic.
I can't imagine fighting over him.
I think, so my series that most directly relates to this topic is about monsters and demons that inhabit a mall. So it's very silly and campy, and there's still, a pretty, respectable amount of violence in it. Not as much sex. There's, like I said, one scene where it gets a little bit, it references, but there's no on-page sex in that book. And I think kind of like going back to the 80s, thinking about like the camp of that and who those movies were made for, I think it's because like, if you're a teenager, sex is, it can be intimidating and it can be scary. And to add like a serial killer to it, like it shouldn't make it funny, but it kind of does. Like to juxtapose those two things together, it's just like, well, this is ridiculous, and I think that's part of it too, is to be able to laugh at two things that are, sex and violence both being scary.
There's a great, two things. First, I've told you this before, and I mentioned this before, and I think I've even mentioned it on air before, but your series always reminds me of Night of the Comet, which is in the 80s. But the other thing is when you mentioned that, it made me think of The Gate, where they hail a Satanist demon, and then one of the girls camp in the campy moment goes, "Well, you didn't have to open it,
Oh, the Canadian horror. I love it.
Sean, did you want to jump in on this?
I don't really do camp, so I don't really. My release valve is just honestly, my release valve is non confrontational hard science sci-fi. So I don't really write camp or humor in that. I mean, I write sarcasm throughout what I write, even in the really dark stuff. So I don't really need that release valve. I guess even though I was watching all that campy stuff in the 80s, it was never my favorite thing. I guess I'm kind of a stick in the mud that way. I mean, I reckon
you're actually, and Brian will go along with this as well. You're the guy we all wanted to be at our viewing parties, VHS viewing parties, because we're the guy. If we impressed you, we impressed.
Yes.
That was the.
If we got you to be into it, it was a good one. I'll tell you. So basically, you aren't impressed with Return of the Living Dead, which is very camp in its own way with sex and violence.
It is very campy. It really is. But I mean, it's like I watch it and then be like, oh yeah, it's fine. But I'm not like super into it. Yeah.
Oh man,
I know.
We're all laughing our asses off, and you're just sitting there like, that's not accurate.
That's exactly right. That is accurate. Yes, you are exactly right. So that doesn't seem realistic. So, but then I watch the thing and I'm like, oh, this is the best thing ever, right? So
I don't think there's anything to laugh about at the thing except
probably the least wonderful example of
Well,
that.
Yeah,
that's what I'm trying to
except for
say.
Kurt Russell getting mad that the computer beat him and goes cheating, bitch. It just breaks. How many gamers have done that? I remember taking my Genesis cartridges out and punching them because I felt the game was cheated.
All right. Well, that being said, let's get into the minute and then get everybody to read and get ourselves out of here because I know some of us have football games to watch and everything like that. So, but this week we've got a really great week of programming for you. On Monday, I am sitting down with Lily Lucchese, which will be awesome. Because this season of 21 Grams, if you haven't already checked out the first episode with Bobby Nash, it's up now and you can go check it out, which is really great because Bobby's not the guy you would think of to talk about villains, but we had an incredible conversation about villainy. And this year on season 6, that's what we're talking about, the dark side. So this goes along with that topic. And Lily might have written one of the greatest villains of all time. And so it's going to be really great to talk to her about that and talk about Angelica Cross and her evolution and everything like that. But this is going to be a great conversation. That starts at 7 p.m. Eastern. And then at 8 p.m. Eastern, you'll see me again. Double dipping on Monday as we do in late night news. And we've got some really great stories for you. An opportunity for indies out there to take advantage of our government for once in our lives. You won't want to miss that story. And we're going to talk a little bit RPG stuff with Sean on that episode as well. So you want to check that out. And then on Tuesday, the aforementioned Juliet Rose's show, First Time for Everything, season 3, keeps on rolling. Kay Spriling is her guest, and Kay has written this really interesting crime thriller that you might want to check out. That'll be Tuesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. And then on Wednesday, I'm going to finally get out the episode that I've been working on for the last week of Saving a Seat. It's a special 1-hour episode because we do pay tribute to a couple of fallen, some folks that we lost in the last month or so, recognizable names that contributed to the indie scene. And Brian and I did wax poetic about them for a little bit. And then also, talking about campy and exciting horror, we go into the Toxic Avenger on this episode, and we reviewed both versions, the new one and the 1980s version, as we are now. So it's a very interesting conversation between Brian and I about how we view it as we looked at it now versus when we viewed it as children when we saw it. The first time. But yeah, that's Saving a Seat. That'll be out on Wednesday. And then Saturday, Bob Magoo is back with Page Numbers, and he sits down with his brother from another mother and Ben Meeks to talk about numbers. It's going to be a really interesting bit. If you don't know, Ben is somebody who gets out there a lot and does a lot of conventions. He does probably 30 or 40 a year. So this is going to be a really great conversation about how to make money in conventions and how he does it, because this is his job. This is what he does for a living. So you'll want to check that out, and that'll be out at the end of the week this week. So that's our Go Indie Now minute. Now it's time to epilogue. I'm going to have you all read your own shit this time. So, I say shit. That's not fair. I'm going to have you read your beautiful, beautiful prose this time.
You had my right the first time, Joe.
So, with that being said, everybody can go check out these books. You'll see here, as I do put the first one up, that there's a QR code. That QR code goes directly to this wonderful, wonderful book that SG Toss is about to read for us. This beautiful, beautiful scene from the book she's been talking about all day today. So, Ms. Tosh, take it away.
Yes. Okay. So this comes from the middle of the book, and I'll just read it. I'm not going to explain anything. Fingernails sliced through flesh like the tines of a fork through butter. The rending of clothes clashed with the sound of hair being torn from the scalp. In the booth John had left not 20 minutes earlier, Colton knelt over Jasmine, his distended jaws gnawing on the flesh of her left breast. Not to be outdone, Jasmine pecked at the top of his head with the sharp, hawkish growth that had taken place of her mouth and nose. Her taloned fingers had cut his back to ribbons. Both of them were slathered from neck to navel in thick, sticky crimson. Jesus, John moaned, his shock bringing him to a full stop. The thump of the approaching stampede hot on their heels filled him with terror. They were coming to join the festivities, coming for him. Yet he couldn't seem to make himself move. He shuddered as an errant set of lime green claws ripped through his sleeve and gouged the skin of his forearm. A sharp yank on his wrist pulled him out of his trance, away from danger and nearly off his feet. The next thing he knew, he was on his knees in the shadowy alcove between the door and the stage, with Grace hunkered down in the corner next to him. "What are you doing?" he demanded, covering his head in preparation for the semi-human wave to collapse on top of him. But the wolf women rushed right past him, too intoxicated by the blood circus to notice them. The music changed, and the lights cut out. For the next 3 seconds, he saw nothing. Then, in second number 4, an all-consuming strobe light shattered the darkness and cast the room in a stiff tableau of black and white and red all over. A naked wolfess with flaming orange hair towered over a prone, trembling man. The veins in her arm popped purple against her porcelain skin as she dragged him across the floor. Another 3 seconds of darkness, and the man was on the stage, his outstretched arms pinned against the back wall by 2 additional women. Though his face didn't seem to be as canine as the others, he did share the same beady black eyes. They roamed from one semi-nude figure to the next. I should fix that. Confused, terrified, but still interested.
See, it's not easy, damn it.
No, it's
not. I should mention that while this is from Original Sin, and you see the cover there, the QR code actually goes to the entire anthology of the Dead Mall series. So you can get the whole thing in one shot with that.
Oh, it's actually, there are 2 anthologies. Okay. So it's the first half.
This is the first half. Sorry, I apologize. Yep. This is the first half. But then the second half is very easy to access as well, because you can just go right down the page and it's right there. But yeah, goes to the a grouping of it, and you do write horror very well. That's very well done. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. All right, Mr. DZ Hollow, you ready?
Let me unmute myself. Okay, yeah, I didn't have a lot that was really appropriate for reading this live from this book. So we're at the kind of the end of the book here, and Rachel, one of the main characters, has been kidnapped and sitting in a terrible man's bedroom for a while. So Rachel sat abandoned in the lonesome bedroom, tethered to a useless radiator. The damn thing broke years ago when she was a toddler, far from imprisonment. Her time under Tripp and Trent's care was harrowing. She gave up thinking there was a chance of being rescued or escaping. Rachel lay in her bed. Beside her was a bucket full of shit and piss. "Where the hell is Tripp? It's been days. I'm gonna die," she muttered to herself, trembling. She heard the ruckus but wasn't sure what was going on. Having not eaten in days, she was rapidly losing weight. Hunger pains stabbed in her fragile side. Her tummy felt scattered and fragmented. All Rachel wanted was food and water. The home didn't have air conditioning, and the lack of airflow made the house stagnant and warm. The smell of death permeated the entire residence, and a strange buzzing radiated from the hallway. For months, the stench overtook the abode. Rachel assumed the smell was Dale's dead body, but he had been burned long ago. The lingering scent was putrid, and the forsaken teen used the comforter to cover her nose from the rotting smell of decomposing flesh every night as she slept. As summer pressed on, it reeked more and more, the decay prominent. Rachel gagged incessantly in the afternoons when the rot was most ripe. For the last few weeks, she wondered what was creating the scent. It was as if a horse died in the walls. "I can't take this shit anymore. There has to be a way to end my life," she declared, looking for a way to kill herself. Lost and broken, nothing mattered anymore, only the release of her suffering.
Man, if that doesn't get you to get that book, I don't know what will. That's fantastic stuff right there.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Hillman, you ready?
I'm ready.
Here you go.
All right, so this is from the opening story in my collection, Language Skeptics. The story is called Sirocco. And Joe likes the story a lot, so that's why I grabbed an excerpt from that. And here we go. Around the corner came the woman from the living room, in her hand a syringe. They meant to poison her or drug her and find out what she knew, or maybe they just wanted to have a good time with a local without having to pay the going rates. Regardless, the entire operation was about to take a turn because these assholes were not good at what they did. If they had played it right, Olana, even with her training, might not have seen it coming. But she did, and it was all balls up. Amateurs. The woman was a half step into the bathroom when Alana grabbed the syringe hand and plunged it into her neck, pushing down on the plunger. Her other hand clamped hard over the woman's mouth, and Alana used her own body to pin the woman inside the bathroom. Alana could see no one behind the woman, so she hooked the door with her foot and closed it hard. It slammed shut. That might not be suspicious. The stupid local might put up a fight after all. In 10 seconds, the woman slid to the floor, her pupils well on their way to dilating, and her breathing slowed. One of the new serums they were using in interrogation. Some of them were frightening in their effectiveness. It could just as well be slow poison, and Alana was not going to wait around to find out. Expert hands found the woman's weapon. It was a slug thrower, one of the new 10.5 millimeter semi-autos. Alana checked the clip, slid it back into place, and snatched the silencer from the outside of the gun holster. The woman from the living room had fancied herself a killer. Not killer enough. Not today, bitch. Alana delivered a kick to the woman's face before flinging the door open. Waiting with expectant faces were the two thugs, plus Weems and Vin. As Alana walked out, their mouths dropped open, her presence unexpected. She put a silenced round through the three open mouths, blood splattering the walls and slugs burrowing into the walls too. Vin was the last one standing, without an audible gasp that no doubt was meant to be a scream. Alana put one through her left eye, leaving a bigger hole than a sliver gun would have. At such close range, even the whisper of a silenced weapon could be heard, and no doubt the men at the door were trying to decipher the sound of falling bodies and slugs burrowing into walls. Alana knew she was 3 steps ahead, could not give them space to catch up.
My other than the very first line of that story, that's my favorite part of that story.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right, Mr. Tan, you ready?
Yeah, so this is from the sort of middle part of Ed and Livy when enough is finally enough. I wasn't able to find the most recent file, so I had to go with a little bit of an older one. So if it's a little bit rougher, I do apologize. You're always safe with me, he said to her gently. I'm sick of this shit, Ed, she said finally. I'm sick of the power they have over us, that they hold over our heads, that fucking beast killed our baby, Ed, and that drunken bastard killed my other one. I should have one beautiful child and another one on the way. They've both been murdered, and for what? Because those things just felt like it. Before he could say anything, she sniffled, trying to fight back the threatening tears. And this bullshit system is set up to let people like her thrive. Do you want to know why Martin didn't go to prison? Why? Because his father is rich, and he claimed that he was so drunk he didn't remember what happened. But he remembers it. I know he does. The last time I saw him at the mall, there was something in his face, and he remembered. I just want to see him suffer for that. Just like I want to see that goddamn monster X of yours suffer. She shouted angrily. And why the fuck not? Why not that fucker who was supposed to be your lawyer, but gave into everything she wanted? And that fucking conquering hero free lawyer of hers too. And can you answer this question for me? Why is her family and that little fat demon spawn of hers allowed to get away with this? They tried to ruin us, Ed. They ruined our chance to have a happy life. She cried out, looking to him. They destroyed our chance at a happy life. They killed our babies. And she is going to be living happy and fat and comfortably off of your hard work for the next 11 years of our lives. And then, if she sends that brat to college, good luck if you ever want to have any money to retire on. They're trying to destroy us, Livy growled. Why is that right? Why? She yelled. Gone was the warm, loving brown eyes that he'd gotten lost in. They looked twisted with anger, sadness, and pain. He was unable to judge her or even feel fear. He felt the exact same. "It's not right," he said, his voice low and thick. "Do you remember Craig Jackson?" she asked him. "Of course I do." "And what happened to him when he tried to take from you? What did you do to him?" she asked seriously. "I killed his black ass," he growled. "That's right. That's my baby. You killed his black ass. He was going to take you from me before I could even have a chance to have you. Was that right?" she asked. "No," he said with more conviction in his voice this time. "No, it wasn't." She moved her hand over his thigh between his legs, taking him into her hand, causing him to gasp. "They keep taking and taking and taking from us. And I'm tired of it, baby." "Are you tired of it?" she asked sweetly. "Yes," he moaned as he grew more excited. "So what are you going to do about it, baby?" she asked him as she began to stroke him faster, the splashing of the water from her movements the furthest thing from their minds. "What are you going to do? I have you so hard right now. And Daddy, guess what? You can't do anything because I have to heal. That cunt and that bastard and their little friends have done this to us. What are you going to do about it?" she asked, stroking him faster and harder now. He shuddered in her grasp, biting his lip for a moment. "I'm gonna make them pay," he cried out loudly as his climax hit him suddenly and without warning. She continued to stroke him harder than before, causing a second wave of orgasm to hit him before he was even finished with the first. She gently rubbed him as his body went limp in the water. "I hope so, baby. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of being used as their punching bags. Tired of us being hurt by their lies and their bullshit. It's enough," she said, pulling her hand from under the water, his excitement still coating her fingers. She licked the remnants from her fingers and kissed him gently. "I'm ready for bed, honey," she said. "Let's go to bed, all right?" "I swear to God I'll get them," he moaned. That was a little bit more intense than I remembered.
I love this cover, by the way. Yeah.
Shout out to my man Will Ramos.
And good way to end things on this particular episode, I think. Thank you everybody for being here. Let's go around the room really quick and tell everybody where they can find you. Starting with Mr. Hollow. Tell everybody where they can find you, sir.
You can find me on Facebook under DZ Hollow. It's pretty much mostly what I'm using right now. And all my books are on Amazon. You can go check it out. What I read from was Car Decay, an extreme horror novel.
Nice. Ms. Taz?
Yeah, you can find me at sgtosh.com. That's got all my socials, all my links. I've got the Dead Mall series finished up on Amazon, and that is actually available wide, so you can get that anywhere. And my other series, also complete, Death by Misadventure, is on Amazon and in KU currently.
Mr. Tan?
Yep, you can find me at Brian Tan Author. I'm on Facebook, Blue Sky, Instagram, Threads. If it's not Brian Tan Author, it's at Author Brian Tan. It's one of the two. Just search Brian Tan. You'll either find me or my kid. You'll be able to discern between the two.
Awesome. And you'll see him here quite a bit. So
yeah,
everybody
what
here.
am I going to do?
All right, Mr. Hillman?
Yep, like I mentioned, I'm here. You can find me here next week. I'll be hosting This Week in Indies. I host Zero Means You're Dead and Hit the Dice. It's a GM and producer here on Go Indie Now. You can find my blog, which is out of date, but I'll be catching up soon, on wickedvoice.com. And hopefully around January, first part of January, my next collection of shorts will come out with actually a really nice horror story in that called, the collection is going to be called Orb Weaver. So that and Language Skeptics you can already get on Amazon.
Nice. Awesome. And I'm Joe Compton, and this is Go Indie Now. Congratulations, you found us. Thank you for joining us. If you want more great content, which we do every day, every week, every year, all the time, you can go subscribe to our channel, please, and like, comment, and do everything you do to help get this seen for other people to see it. And we really appreciate everything that you do for us. And if you're interested in listening to me read my own stuff, I will be a panelist next week on This Week in Indies. A little teaser for y'all, so you can you'll get a glimpse of how what my stuff is like by what I read. So that being said, remember that's always time to go indie now. Bye, everybody.